9C2. Question number 2B. Five. Seven C. Have like a 7C. 20. 28 P2 9C2 বলা হচ্ছে। Okay, আমরা start করি. So we'll do till question number 10 এর মধ্যে যতগুলো প্রবলেম আছে ওগুলো করে, then we'll go to the next 10. Okay, so আগে গেলে start করি. So 1 1 2 5 7 and 9. Right, so state what is represented by an electric field line. We'll just quickly go through these as a recap. What does an electric field line represent? Right, exactly. Direction in which a positive unit charge experiences force. Direction in which move in a field. Yeah, you can say that, but sometimes what may happen is that it may not move in the direction of that line. So what if there's a resultant force from some other side? So, but no, you can actually write it. Money, if you allow it to move, it will actually move in the line. Yes. Yeah, that's the best answer. Okay, so direction in which test positive charge moves. Or direction of force at all trend. Okay. আচ্ছা, so তোমাদের প্রবলেম মনে হচ্ছে বি তে কিছু ইস্যু আছে। বি 1 2 3 সবগুলোতেই কোশ্চেন পেলাম। আচ্ছা, it says that two charges P and Q are placed 0.12 meters apart as shown in the diagram here. The charge P is 4 nanocoulomb and that's -7 nanocoulomb. Determine the distance of P from point on a line joining the two charges where the electric potential is 0. So determine the distance from P of the point lining the two. Determine the distance P from P. Sorry, on the line joining the two charges. So a line joining the two charges. Find the distance where the potential is 0. Potential ki korte hoy? Just add korte hoy, right? So how do you find this distance? So you can. It's only 2 marks though. Acha dekhi. Eta x. What should that be? 0.120 minus x. Potential jodi hocche 0 hoy, tale potential for P at this location is going to be what? VP jodi boli ki asbe eta KQ by D. আর এই কিউটা যদি এই জায়গায় আমি বের করি, what's the value going to be? PQ KQ by 0.120 minus D, right? Or minus X, right? এখন the idea with potential is that you just add them. It's like if you want to find the net, you just add them. Potential কিন্তু vector না. So there's no plus and minus that you can do. It's just like, scalar quantity, you just add them, okay? So VP plus VQ. That's what we're going to do here. But you'll notice that VP ta hocche 4 nanocoulomb into K divided by the distance is going to be X, right? Plus, eta naturally minus hoye jabe because the charge is what? Minus. So -7 nanocoulomb into K divided by 0.120 minus X equal to what? 0, right? So it has to solve korte jao, you see the K cancels out, the nano cancels out. So it's going to be 4 by X equals to 7 by 0.120 minus X. X solve korle jeta ashe should be the answer. Koto ashe? Um, 0.043 meters. You can't. The reason why you can't is because why are you equating them? Mathematically, if something plus something is equal to 0, how would you write? Yeah, so what you're gonna do is not wrong, because eventually it'll turn out to be this equals to that, right? But the sign does play a role here, and if you don't use the sign properly, it would be a problem. So I think the best way is to just this plus this equal to 0. That's what the like a sentence is, right? That the net is equal to 0. Acha, this is BI. It's to check because tomorrow will problem আছে এখানে. For 2 marks যেহেতু বলছে, there might be a easier way of doing this, or maybe they just feel like this is worthy of 2 marks. এটা হচ্ছে আচ্ছা, পরেরটা বলছে state and explain without calculation whether the electric field strength is 0 at the same point at which the electric potential is 0. Electric potential negative version of that, the gradient, negative gradient gives you what? Electric field strength, right? So you can infer from there. So what do you think? Is it 0? The place where the net field is 0, the net potential is 0. February, March, that's it. Target answer to check for me. 0. The whole calculation is 1 mark. Manora eight course exactly course, and they gave like 1 mark for that. Okay. Acha, এখানে বলছে state and explain without calculation whether the electric field strength at the same point is going to be 0 or not. Problem কি হচ্ছে এটা plus or এটা minus. We know from there that if you have a point between a plus and a minus, it can never be a what point? A null point. A null point will always form in terms of electric field strength between what charges? Like charges. এখানে যেটা হচ্ছে, you have your charge here, right? Just imagine this, okay? You have to word your answer probably this way. This is the charge out here. This is the experience in a force, and it's a test positive charge, right? Is the experience in what from that side? Repulsion. And what is it experiencing from this side? Attraction. Is there any way that the two forces can cancel out and give you a 0? No, right? So therefore, it can never be 0 between two unlike charges. So state and explain without calculation whether the electric field strength is 0 at the same point. No. And reason হচ্ছে, yeah, the direction of the force or electric field strength, direction of the electric field strength is always acting in which direction? Yes, is always in the same direction. Hence, it cannot cancel or be equal. The direction of the electric field strength is always in the same direction, hence it cannot cancel or be equal to 0. B3 তারপর আছে, okay. এটা কি বুঝছো? I was going to go with the electric gradient part, but electric gradient এর জন্য গ্রাফ ছাড়া পসিবল না। ওটা যেটা হতো যে তোমার গ্রাফের মধ্যে হচ্ছে যদি গ্রেডিয়েন্টটা 0 হতো, we could say what? That it's electric field strength is equal to what? 0. Can anyone tell me what's the risk of this? Why is this not suitable like the solution that electric potential যদি 0 হয়, field strength can 0 নাও হতে পারে? Electric potential 0 মানে কি? If I do a graph for V versus D, right? Let's clarify this because it's important. So if I do a graph for V versus D, electric potential 0 মানে the graph is doing a crossover. Crossover মানে কি? যে x-axis থেকে কোথায় যাচ্ছে? Y-axis এ. And we saw last class that just because it goes from x-axis to y-axis, it doesn't necessarily mean that the gradient might be what? 0, right? So এখানে যেটা হতে পারবে দেখবা যে এরকম দেখতে আসছে গ্রাফটা, but you'll find that a মাঝখানের লোকেশনটাতে there's always a what? Gradient, right? So is there any place where there's a gradient 0 here? So, right? This question that I've just done, this is basically the graph that you're supposed to get. So you get a 0 crossover here. Taking a V equals to what? 0. But electric field strength is not equal to what? 0. Why is electric field strength not equal to 0? The electric field strength is what of this graph? The gradient of the graph, and the gradient is definitely not 0 here. Okay, so just be aware of that. Okay, এখানে বলছে the electron is positioned at point X, equidistant from P and Q as shown. On the diagram, draw an arrow to represent the direction of the resultant force acting on the electron. Somebody asked me this question. কে জিজ্ঞেস করছিল? আচ্ছা, right. So P P is what charge? Positive, okay? It came to boli for Newton 4. And Q is negative, right? And they said that what you have here, this point here, this is an electron. So if you have an electron here, what does the positive charge do to your electron? Attract, right? So it's going to experience a force that way. Let's put this arrow that way, straight with the gauge. And the minus Q is going to what this ripple, right? But which way? That way, right? Because it's going to be exactly same line, but ulta dige. Do you think the magnitude would be same or longer? Longer. Why is that so? Because these are same distances, but this one has what charge? More charge, so more repulsion, so something like that. The question is to draw the what of these two forces resultant, right? So what you do is you take this here and you place it here. You take this here and you place it there. Whichever way you're comfortable with, but resultant paper, one of the ways is this process is called the what method? Parallelogram, right? Which way would your resultant act? Like that. Okay, that should be the answer. Other answer key will should the straight arrow leftwards in the x direction, extend the joint Q horizontally. It is. Okay, next is number 2AI. It is clear. Number 1. Any question? আচ্ছা 2 তে বলছে 2AI determine the direction of এটা ম্যাগনেটিজমের কোশ্চেন চলে আসছে পরের পার্টে ইলেকট্রিক ফিল্ডসটা প্রবলেমটা কি হচ্ছে BAI তে ছিল BAI পার্ট ছিল কোশ্চেন নাম্বার 2 তে প্রবলেম কোশ্চেন 2 2 কোন পার্টটা এটা B আচ্ছা ওকে আচ্ছা একটু এদিকে দেখি so you have this you have this mass here and you have this charge here and the field is provided going upwards so এখানে sphere দেওয়া এখানে বলছে যে force is exerted on the sphere causes the sphere to remain exact vertical height in the horizontal plane তো আমাদের কি মনে আছে এই জিনিসটা কি ছিল there was this one question I gave you that in a uniform electric field a particle can be stationary at a particular location. How is that possible? Yeah, the weight is acting downwards and the electric field is acting upwards, and you can make the particle levitate, like just stay there, right? So that's basically what's happening right now. There's a uniform magnetic field in the region of the electric field. The sphere moves at a speed of 0.75 in the horizontal plane. So you're looking at the top view here. So particles the same height maintain করে, but কি করতেছে? গোল হয়ে ঘুরতেছে। বুঝছো জিনিসটা? কেউ আমাকে বলবে এটা কোথায় ইউজ হয়? I have discussed this with you. যেটা হ্যাঁ যে পার্টিকেলটা একটা হাইটে থাকে বাট গোল হয়ে ঘুরতে থাকে পার্টিকেল অ্যাক্সেলারেটরে নো no the large hadron collider no তোমাদের কি ডিটেইলে পড়ানো হয়েছে I talked about it তোমাদের ডিটেইলস নাই আচ্ছা না you guys are very close to it it's that level of science মানে যেই লেভেলের কথা বলতেছো but you're not going for the exact thing it's a fusion reactor so fusion reactor মধ্যে the plasma that high temperature thing that produces the energy right it's so high temperature that if it comes in contact with walls or floors it will melt through it so we have to make it float how do we make it float we provide a what to it an electric field which makes it stay here but electric field it's losing K because you need to have high K. So you provide a magnetic field as well. So what does it start to do? Spiral, just moving really fast, right? But it's trapped there and it's not in contact with the container. Okay. Anyways, determine the direction of the uniform magnetic field. Direction of the uniform magnetic field. Determine the direction of the uniform magnetic field. Or magnetic field provide electric field lines. Oh, acha. So এটা কেমনে বের করব আমরা পার্টিকেলটা হচ্ছে এদিকে যাচ্ছে বাট এদিকে না গিয়ে কোন দিকে বেন্ড করতেছে উপরের দিকে so it's going that way and that was it the electric field no magnetic field in opposite direction to electric field cannot no that's the velocity selector You're right. In a velocity selector, the electric field tries to take the particle out, the magnetic field tries to take the particle down. And where does the particle end up going? Straight. That's to filter out velocities. This is a different device. So what you need to do is, do you know the charge of the sphere? Charge is positive, right? So it's a positively charged sphere. It's a magnetism chapter, but at this point, we have to do everything as we get them. So positive particle is going to the right, but it bends and goes to the top because the diagram shows it's going up, right? So how do you find the answer? Left-hand rule. So F, B, I, particle is going to the right. Magnetic flux so that it moves up into the page, right? So if your magnetic flux is into the page and the particle is going to the right, which was my thumb pointed, upwards, right? And isn't the particle bending upwards? That probably is because it's experiencing an upward force, right? So therefore, what's the direction of the uniform magnetic field? Up. No, current out of the page. So current current in the left-hand rule is a direction in which a charged particle moves. No, electric field to electric field. আমাদের দেখতে হবে আমার পার্টিকেল যে সার্কুলার মোশন করতেছে because of the magnetic field ওইটা নিয়ে FB এর মধ্যে I is not electric field. I is what? Current. এখানে কারেন্ট নাই তো, বাট এখানে একটা পজিটিভ পার্টিকেল আছে যেটা এদিকে যাচ্ছে, রাইট? What do you call the flow of a positive particle? Current. Okay. So into the page হবে, into the downward. No, the right side. Yeah. No, but the particle is going up, right? So as the direction of the force. না f হবে যদি মার্কস ম্যানসি কি বলছে vertically downwards. Oh, right, sorry. আমি ব্লুটা দেখে ভাবতেছিলাম হচ্ছে this is the force. No, this is the force magnetic. আচ্ছা, let me clarify. So আবার করি, answer ঠিক আছে, এটাই আছে. It's just they use the other diagram, right? So যে FBI কারেন্টটা কোন দিকে যাচ্ছে? This way. Which was a particle bended মানে কোন দিকে হচ্ছে deflect করতেছে পার্টিকেলটা upwards, right? So point your thumb upwards. So which way is your finger pointed? Into the page, right? So এখানে into the page মানে from my point of view আমরা যেখানে তাকায় দেখতেছি the magnetic field is going into the page, which is a what here? Cross. Do you agree with that much? আচ্ছা, এখন এখানে the electric field is a dot and your magnetic field is what? A cross. So if you go to the original diagram, if your electric field is a dot, a magnetic field যদি cross হয়, which is a magnetic field acting downward. I find this completely pointless একটা জিনিস because হচ্ছে ওরা তো reference দেয় যে which field diagram are we referring to, মানে এখানে হলে it's into the page, এদিকে হলে কোন দিকে হবে? Downwards, right? বলো হ্যাঁ কোনটা sphere which না upward মানে যে এদিকে bend করতেছে, not vertically upwards, horizontally upwards. So when it's not rising, it's going this way. It's top view থেকে upwards mean করছে. Okay. Magnetic field, FBI, I is the current, right? Current means what in this scenario? The direction in which a positive charge is moving. So which way is a positive charge trying to move? To the right. Are you looking at the circular diagram? Yeah, in the circular diagram, if you see here, right? Which way is the positive particle? This is the positive particle here. Which way is it trying to go? Right, but it can't go to the right. Why? Because there's a force acting on it. Which way should the force act? That it goes upwards. Yeah, towards the center, right? So that must be the force, and that must be the direction. So this is your force, this is your current. Now we find the V. Which one will be the current? Why can't this be the current? Why should that be the current? It's like you're wishing for it to be that. Or why? The particle is clearly going this way. It's like your question is like, why isn't the particle going anti-clockwise? Because in this question is going clockwise. This way. Acha. Okay, let's imagine there's no magnetic field here, right? And you have a sphere like this. Where do you think the sphere should go? No magnetic field. So it'll go just straight like that. And as it's going straight like this, if there's a force acting that way, which would the particle just like upwards, right? So that's the force due to the magnetic field. That is the direction in which the particle should have moved. And if you put these together, it's a centrifugal force, I guess, because it's always acting towards the center. So it means that the magnetic flux has to be into the page for this to do that. Do you agree? That's okay. কোনটা অ্যানসারটা into the page কিন্তু কারেক্ট অ্যানসার ওরা হচ্ছে এই ডায়াগ্রামের রেফারেন্স বলছে এই ডায়াগ্রামে তুমি তো হচ্ছিল এখান থেকে যেহেতু দেখতেছো আমাদের অ্যানসার ইনটু দ্য পেজ আসছে সো which means এদিকে যদি যায় which way the lines pointed downwards so ওরা downwards allow করছে yeah you could say that into the page yeah I think so because the thing here is they didn't say according to which diagram should we answer. So into the page or downwards vertically when viewed at a key view from the side. Okay, explain why the motion of the sphere is in a horizontal plane is circular. Why is the motion horizontal plane circular? Kinetic energy. Yes, and right. So key points. তোমাদের problem যেটা হচ্ছে I know definitely you know the answer. You have to, otherwise পরীক্ষা দেওয়া যাবে না. But the thing is that the way you're wording it, তাহলে problem হয়ে যাচ্ছে. Okay, it says why the motion is in a horizontal plane circular. So circular motion is a requirement key. There must be a continuous force acting towards the center of the motion. So you first acknowledge that. Okay. No, velocity constant না হয় circular motion হয়. এখানে না ওটা হচ্ছে আই থিঙ্ক somewhere else যে r equals to mv by bq একটা ইকুয়েশন আছে ওটা এখানে লাগবে না you're right but not in this case ওটাতে কোশ্চেনটা হওয়ার কথা why is the radius constant আচ্ছা সো এখানে বলবা constant force is required acting towards the center acting yes towards the center তারপর that is needed for what circular motion next হচ্ছে this force provide your what force this force applies the centripetal force needed for the charge to be in circular motion. So there's a question here when the question tells about current direction, is it always talking about conventional current? Yes. So তোমরা যখনই left hander use করবা, you're always assuming the current that you have is a flow of what charge? Positive charge. And if it's a negative charge, you still apply the positive charge rule and then you make it opposite. Okay. In some places they'll tell you to use the right hand. I prefer not to use the right hand. তাহলে সব জায়গায় অ্যান্সারটা ইজি হবে, you just focus on one. Okay, otherwise confuse হয়ে যাবে, where do I use what? আচ্ছা, এই অ্যান্সারের মধ্যে if I wrote this in the exam, I would probably have added আরেকটা জিনিস, I don't know মার্কস কি চাচ্ছে নাকি, there's other marking scheme that sometimes is not consistent, the fact that there's a continuous change in what. Yeah, so এখানে বলছি explain why the motion of the sphere in horizontal plane is circular. This is enough, but যদি জিজ্ঞেস করতো why is the object undergoing circular motion, right? That's a different question. ওটার answer কি হতো? Just quick recap. Circular motion যেহেতু করা হয় নাই মানে revision. What's the answer to an object? Explain why the particle is undergoing circular motion. What's the answer? No, generally. হ্যাঁ, এই কোয়েশ্চেনের জন্য why is the sphere undergoing circular motion? Right? Right. But answer to holo na. But our question is, why does it go in a circle? You said 3 points, but not 3 points that tell the answer. This is supposed to be answered differently. The particle is continuously in a circle is continuously changing what direction? That continuous change in direction results in a continuous change in velocity. The change in velocity leads to what? An acceleration, which acts towards what? The center. And to provide this acceleration, a force is required to act which way? Towards the center, which is referred as what? Centripetal force. It's the same thing, but this argument is more logical in like, you're given by cause and effect. আর তুমি যদি উল্টাটা করো, তাহলে ওটা উল্টাটা কি হচ্ছে? You're saying that there's a force, and you're trying to reverse it and say that why the force makes it go in a circle, which is not easy to work. কারণ তোমাদের answer গুলো wasn't actually adding up to the end. I think this one is more better to remember, like how to sequence your answer. So first, কি বলবা? It's moving in a circle, which means what's happening? Continuous change in direction. Change in direction means what? Change in velocity, and change in velocity leads to an acceleration, which acts in this case in a circle which way? Towards the center. To provide that acceleration of what is needed? A force, right? And that force is provided by what? The a magnetic force, অন্য জায়গায় gravitational force. You relate to that in that answer. Okay, yeah. Velocity change হতে থাকে, speed constant থাকে, right? আচ্ছা, calculate the strength of the uniform electric field. তোমাদের কোয়েশ্চন এটাতে ছিল, রাইট? যারা বলছো না, তাহলে কোনটা? উপরেরটাই? আচ্ছা, ওকে। আচ্ছা, next is question number 5B. Interesting. I think the question is about quantum physics, but we'll do the whole thing. That's a problem, right? So এখানে বলছে that isolated metal sphere of radius r is charged so that the electric potential at the surface is V naught. Sketch a graph to draw the electric field strength, electric potential এর জন্য, right? কি হবে এটা? এটা বলছে isolated metal sphere of radius r so that the potential at the surface is V naught. So that's where it starts from. What will happen as you go away? Increase or decrease? Decrease, right? But ওরা বলছে এই ভ্যালুস গুলো ইউজ করতেছে, you have to be a little bit specific about your values of field strength. Can you tell me what is my variation of V with R? Is it inverse square law or inverse? Inverse, right? So R এ তোমার কি হবে ভ্যালুটা? Does it start from here or does it start from R? R, কেন? Yeah, তারপর হচ্ছে 2R এ কি হবে? 2R এ হচ্ছে half, and 3R এ হবে কি? Yeah, so এখানে প্লট করি আমরা, ওরা প্লট দেখেও. So this is one of them, and the other one is 0.33, right? So 0.5. এটা কি টাইপের ডিভিশন is ওরা? 1 2 3 boxes as 0.5. ওরা নিজেরাই বলে এটা কোনদিন করতে না। আচ্ছা, 3 boxes যদি 0.5 দেয়, তাহলে 0.33 how many boxes? 1 box? হ্যাঁ, আচ্ছা, I think ওর জন্যই করছে এটা। One box 0.33, 10 boxes. আচ্ছা আচ্ছা রাইট, হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ এখানে like that. Okay. হ্যাঁ বলো। না, এটা তো চারটা গ্রাফ হয়। লাস্ট ক্লাসে ছিল। হ্যাঁ রাইট, ওইটি অ্যাকচুয়ালি দ্যাট ওয়াজ দ্য থিং। আই অলসো থট ওরা তো কিছু বলে না, বাট দেন ওরা বলছে। কি বলছে? যে এটা স্টার্ট করে হচ্ছে পজিটিভ থেকে। হ্যাঁ, সো পজিটিভ থেকে যদি স্টার্ট করেছে, ওর ইমপ্লাইং দ্যাট ইটস অলরেডি ইন দ্য পজিটিভ পার্ট। আর পজিটিভ থেকে অনেক বাড়তে পারবে না, এই কমতে পারবে। ইটস দ্য গ্রাফ লুকস লাইক দিস, এই যে সব জায়গায় এদিকে 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 এদিকে, দিস আর দ্য ফোর পসিবিলিটিস। আচ্ছা, তারপর বলছে photons have in wavelength lambda incident on a metal surface. The maximum wavelength for which the emission takes place is lambda naught. Lambda naught. আমার মনে হচ্ছে এখানে ভ্যালুগুলো আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে, ওরা ওরা লেবেল করে দিচ্ছে ঠিক মতো করে। For photons of wavelength lambda naught by 2, the maximum Ke emitted is E max. On the figure 5.2, sketch a variation for wavelength lambda of the maximum Ke energy of values of wavelength between lambda naught by 3 and lambda naught. Okay. এটার জন্য হচ্ছে, let's do a quick recap. 5 equations from quantum physics. Let's start with the first one. The energy for a photon, yeah, equals to hf. তারপর হচ্ছে what's the, or hc by lambda, correct? What's the formula for phi is work function hf, but হচ্ছে f টা কি হবে? Yeah, the threshold frequency. Okay, now phi is also hc by lambda threshold. Lambda threshold, by the way, is the minimum wavelength. Our frequency is the maximum because they're inversely proportional. Okay, but then comes the ultimate equation, which defines the whole chapter. What is it? hf equals to phi plus half mv max squared. Okay, this is basically the chapter. নাও এছাড়া হচ্ছে তোমাদের কিছু রেশিওস থাকে, লাইক ফোটন রেশিও টু ল্যামডা রেশিও, ফোটন রেশিও টু ফ্রিকোয়েন্সি রেশিও। ও হ্যাঁ, মোমেন্টামটা কি হবে? h equals to n, আচ্ছা বলো কি? h by p, না না, ওটা ডেব্রোয়া ওয়েভলেন্থ। ল্যামডা ডেব্রোয়া ওয়েভলেন্থ হচ্ছে h by p. What's ডেব্রোয়া ওয়েভলেন্থ? Wavelength, yes, it's the wavelength of a moving particle. So tomorrow particles don't have wavelength, right? But we understand they do have wavelength, we just can't see it, right? So if you want to know the wavelength of a particle with momentum, this is the formula. And the one with momentum of a particle is E by C. But this is momentum of what particle? Photon. Only photons can travel at the speed of light. Okay, আচ্ছা, so yeah, these are the equations out there. এখন এখানে কি করতে বলছে? Sketch the variation of lambda of the maximum K available. So এখানে যদি আমরা এটাকে রিপ্লেস করি h c by lambda, হ্যাঁ বলো। E, energy of the photon, half K max. আমাদের হচ্ছে রেখে y equals to mx plus c দিয়ে কনভার্ট করলে বেটার হতো, বাট এখানে ওরা ল্যামডা দিছে অন দি x axis, রাইট? ল্যামডা হচ্ছে sketch the variation of wavelength of maximum kinetic energy for the values of wavelength of lambda by 3 to lambda. এই টাইপের কোয়েশ্চেন দিলে আমি তোমাদেরকে একটু help করি কেমনে করতে হয়। It's not a conventional graph. It's like not someone supposed to know beforehand. What do you do when you get questions like this? তোমাদের এসেটা অনেক আসতো MCQ তে, like random relationship, momentum and let's say time, and you have to figure it out, right? So what do you need to do all the time? Right, so you have to convert this into an equation here. So এখন হচ্ছে K max should be equal to what? HC by lambda minus phi. That should be our graph. So এখানে there's going to be a y-intercept here, but the problem হচ্ছে এটা কি দিয়েছে ওরা? Lambda. In that case, না ওটা না। তা আমি তোমাদেরকে কোয়েশ্চেন যেটা করবো দেখাতে পারো নাকি? আই ওয়ান্ট টু সি কতটুকু তোমরা ম্যাথ বুঝছো ইন দ্য লাস্ট 4 years. সো আমাকে একটু বলবে এই গ্রাফটা কিরকম দেখতে হবে? y equals to 1 by x minus a. Oh, y axis and x axis. কিরকম দেখতে হবে গ্রাফটা? হ্যাঁ, plus y equals to minus a, right? So plus a কেন হবে? আমি কি দেইনি অ্যাক্সেস? So এটা শেপটা কিরকম দেখতে হবে? এটা যদি পারো then that's going to be our answer. আচ্ছা, yeah, so you're saying that it's going to be an inverse graph. How many of you think that the shape is going to be this, and how many of you think it's going to be the blue one, and how many of you think it's going to be the green one? So how many of you think it's the red one? Red. No, ওটা পরে, আগে শেপটা red. Acha, okay. How many? So no one thinks it's going to be the. Acha, there's somebody who said green. No. বাদ দিয়ে দিও এটা, and blue. Acha, okay. So I'll tell you, the graph is supposed to be just this. এটা করার নিয়মটা কি? এটা once you go into university and do like much more complicated equations, right? তোমাদেরকে figure out করার একটা way আছে. First you go to the base. What is that? It's actually this, which you should know. It's an inverse graph, right? তারপরে there's a plus and a minus here, right? A plus minus যে জিনিসটা করে, it translates the graph. It shifts the axis, right? So এখানে হচ্ছে minus a. তার মানে every value on this graph will be shifted downwards by how much value? Minus a, right? So the graph will shift itself down like that. Now আমাদের এখানে হচ্ছে minus k max আসছে. So should be something like that. Okay, and then what is the phi value going to be? 5 কেমনে বের করব? or a, it's going to be এই জিনিসটা এখানে যেটা asymptote থাকবে, right? Now in this case what would you do here? এখানে তো সেম জিনিস করছে, দেখো, hc by lambda, so it's going to be that shape. H is constant, c is constant, and minus phi. So what do you think the shape of the graph should be? এরকম কেন? lambda by 3. lambda by 3 যদি হয় তাহলে তো অ্যামপ্লিটিউডটা বেড়ে যাচ্ছে, রাইট? তাহলে তো আরো স্টিপার হবে। তোমারটা কেন উল্টাই গেছে? মাইনাস হলে উল্টে যেত তো। if this was minus 1 by x, তাহলে গ্রাফটা এরকম দেখতে হতো, রাইট? বলো। এমিশন হ্যাঁ, বিকজ ওয়েভলেন্থ ম্যাক্সিমাম না, ওয়েভলেন্থ মিনিমাম। একটা ভ্যালুর নিচে, আচ্ছা, না প্লট করে করতে পারবো। Just trying to see something. Lambda, okay. The photon of wavelength lambda by 2, k is this, right? K max এটা। তারপর বলছে the maximum wavelength for which there is emission of electron is lambda. তার মানে এটা এখানে আসবে, মানে কোনো k নাই ওদের, right? Maximum wavelength for which there is emission. আর আমাকে lambda not by 3 টা বের করতে হবে। Sketch a variation for lambda not by 3. ওয়েভলেন্থ যদি কমে যায় ফ্রিকোয়েন্সি কি বেড়ে যাবে? আর ওয়েভলেন্থ যদি 3 টাইমস কমে ফ্রিকোয়েন্সি কত টাইমস বাড়বে? 3 টাইমস বাড়বে। ফ্রিকোয়েন্সি যদি 3 টাইমস বাড়ে, hf equals to that, তাহলে k কত টাইমস বাড়বে? 3 টাইমস বাড়বে। এটা যদি এখানে আসে কেন 3/2? ও λ/2 ওয়াজ হচ্ছে Emax। হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ রাইট। তাহলে এটা হবে হচ্ছিল 2/3। 2/3 মানে হচ্ছে কত আসে? 2/3 0.67 নাকি 3/2? 3/2 1.5 হচ্ছে এই জায়গাটায়। আমি বুঝেছি, জাস্ট লেট মি ফার্স্ট চেক অ্যান্সারটা আসে নাকি ঠিক। Here so it should be something like that, and straight line হচ্ছে না। λ/3 is 2e. λ0/2 gives us Emax. So λ0/3 should be, as the energy decreases, as the wavelength decreases, the energy increases. From 2 থেকে স্টার্ট হয়? কারো কি জানা আছে? ঠিক করছো কেউ? আচ্ছা আমি চেক করি 2 থেকে। আচ্ছা এখানে একটা লাইন মিস হয়ে গেছে। আই জাস্ট রিয়েলাইজ আমাদের তো ভিতরেরটা ছিল না। এটা উপরে কি থাকবে? Horizontal. It's fixed at that point and the potential starts to decrease. Okay. এটা কোন year? May June 21. Question number. It says line with negative gradient from lambda at passing through lambda not 0. So I'm not quite mark paise dekhi etu. So we got this mark. It should cross to 0. Negative gradient is the second mark. Our third point bolche the curve with negative gradient of decrease in magnitude passing through half lambda Emax and 1/3 2 Emax. Yeah, it does say 2. 2 কেন হবে? Twice এটা বলতেছে হওয়ার কথা। 2 হ্যাঁ বলো। ওই যে ওরা বলেছে the maximum wavelength at which there is no emission is lambda naught. So lambda naught এর মাত্র emission হচ্ছে, so there is no KE. এটা 1.5 হওয়া উচিত। গ্রাফটা দেখেও মনে হচ্ছে যে ইটস লিটল র্যান্ডম স্টিপনেস চলে আসছে। এটা হলে মোর অ্যাপ্রোপ্রিয়েট একটা শেপ হতো। মানে লুকস লাইক একটু এক্সট্রা কার্ভ হয়ে গেছে উপরে গিয়ে, বাট ওরা বলছে 2। লাস্ট একবার চিন্তা করে দেখি, ওকে? না আদারওয়াইজ আই উইল জাস্ট ডু দিস নেক্সট ক্লাসে। ম্যাক্সিমাম that's one possibility, but lambda naught by 3, I think we can figure this out through math, right? হ্যাঁ বলো। আচ্ছা হ্যাঁ, you have a point, দেখি। hc by lambda naught এটা, হ্যাঁ এটা lambda by যে 3 চলে আসবে এখানে। Yes, I think lambda no lambda naught can k হবে। এটার ke ভ্যালু কত হবে? Like you wanted to convert this into a ke function, right? না হ্যাঁ, সো কে ম্যাক্স এ কি হবে, মানে এটার কে মাইনাস এটার কে কত? ওয়ার্ক ফাংশনে যদি তুমি এমিট হও, হোয়াটস ইওর কে? 0, রাইট? আর এটা হচ্ছে 2 টাইমস 3 টাইমস দিস ভ্যালু, hc বাই ল্যামডা। হ্যাঁ, 1.5 আসছে আমার, কারণ এই যে এটা তো ল্যামডা নট বাই 2 টা হচ্ছে কে। সো হ্যাঁ, হ্যাঁ, এটা 0, রাইট? ও, এটা 0 হবে। আচ্ছা, আমি এটা চেক করে দেবো, বাট আই থিঙ্ক রেস্ট অফ দেম ওয়াজ ফাইন, এই জিনিসটা একটু র্যান্ডম।